Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to you from UPES, the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies at Bidoli near Dehradun. We are right here in the beginning of the Himalayas, and it's very nice, warm weather in winter. Today, I'm going to tell you about possibilities for doing a BTech in UPES. I'll take you through the departments we have, the facilities, and then I will tell you a little bit about the top technology jobs that you can get into when you finish your BTech. With me here is Professor Ajay of the mechanical also. So a little bit about the history of UPES. The UPES journey started in 2003. We were the first Indian university recognized by Energy University recognized by UGC, and the first energy and co-sector university in Asia. At that time in 2003, we started with 240 students in engineering and management, and we had 50 faculty members. And as we moved to 2006 to 2009, the School of Law was established. We got accreditation from the Energy Institute in UK. We got the NAC accreditation, and we had increased to about 3,000 students. In 2010, we had a landmark collaboration with IBM. And then UPES really started racing ahead. In 2011, we went beyond the petroleum and energy sectors, which were our core departments. We started the School of Design Studies in 2013. And today, by 2017, we have two campuses, one here in Bidoli and one in Kandoli, which is about 6 kilometers on the way to Dehradun. We have a total of about 45 acres, more than 80 programs, more than 100 laboratories, and we now have over 12,000 students in the two campuses, and our faculty numbers a little more than 540. The basic organization of UPES, we have 5 schools. We have the School of Engineering that I'm going to tell you more about, but in addition to that, we have the School of Computer Science, a School of Design, we have a School of Business, and a School of Law. The last 2 are in the Kandoli campus, and the first 3 here in Bidoli. Today we will focus only on the School of Engineering. And in the School of Engineering, we have 8 departments. I'll tell you a little bit more about the departments and the programs in each department. Out of the 12,000 plus students, about 4,500 are in the School of Engineering, and nearly half the faculty of UPES is in the School of Engineering. And we have 16 student chapters. What are the BTech programs that you can apply for at UPES in the School of Engineering? In petroleum engineering, applied petroleum engineering, we have 2 specializations. We have one in the upstream, that includes pipeline engineering and the petroleum drilling. And then the second specialization is in gas. Then we have the chemical engineering department, in which you can specialize in refining and petrochemicals. We have a geoscience engineering, geoinformatics, and we have the mechanical engineering and mechatronics. And in the mechanical, we also have the automotive design engineering. And then we have the aerospace department, in which we have the core aerospace engineering, and also you can specialize in avionics. We have the electronics engineering, in which the communication is a part. And then we have the electrical power and energy department with electrical engineering. We have a civil engineering department with a specialization in infrastructure development. And then we also have the fire and safety engineering. What are the eligibility criteria for you to apply for a BTech? So there are two pathways. You can either take the exam pathway, in which we distribute about 80% of the seats, or you can choose the non-exam pathway, in which we have about 20% of the seats. If you opt for the exam pathway, you would require a minimum of 60% marks in your 10th and 12th classes, and also in addition you would require a minimum 60% aggregate in physics, chemistry and mathematics in your 12th. You will have to take the UPES energy aptitude test, and this will be followed by a central counseling. If you opt for the non-exam pathway, you would need a board merit, a minimum of 80% marks in the 10th and 12th classes, and also a 80% aggregate in the physics, chemistry and mathematics in the 12th. Or you could have a JEE main score, in which you would score minimum 60% in 10th and 12th, and then you would get a minimum 60% in physics, chemistry, mathematics. In addition, you would need a JEE mains cutoff of 70%. So you could either have a board merit of 80% minimum, or you could, if you have a 60% minimum, in addition to that, you could have a JEE mains of 70%. UPES has extensive tie-ups with industry and academia. We have national collaborators, a total of 16 national collaborators at the moment, which we are expanding all the time. In fact, even today as we speak, we are discussing a collaboration with Tata Power in Bombay. We have 21 international collaborators, and these are also extending as we go on. And then we have memorandums of understanding, MOUs, with 14 different organizations, a total of over 50 collaborations with industry and academia. These are some of the companies we are tied up with. We have the flagship company of India, Larsen & Toubro, Cisco, we have Philips Carbon Black, and so on. Philips Carbon Black is having a tie-up with the chemical engineering department, Cisco with the electronics engineering. Now I'll give you a little bit of information on how to choose the right program. So it's somewhat like you would select clothes to wear, or maybe a number of other things. This is always a little bit confusing, and when we sit for the counseling and the enrollment, we still have parents and teachers, more the parents coming and asking us, which department should my son or daughter take? So what is it that determines, what are the parameters that determine what department to choose? You have, on the left side, you have the external factors, and the external factors include largely the influence of your parents and your relatives. And then you have self-interest and your research interests. You have your own personality that you have developed in your school and as you grow up. And then you have your motivation. Now these factors are all having a certain amount of importance depending on the kind of person you are and the power of the influence your parents and relatives have over you. On the other side, on the right side, you can see that your education also has a certain influence, and how your personality has been built up. How much self-assurance you have, what you think is the scope of a certain branch of engineering in future, what is the aptitude, your own aptitude. And then we have people, some of you who are a little bit clueless, but you should not be clueless. The other thing is there is also the rat race, how you want to move up your career. So it could be a little bit confusing, but I've been teaching for about 7-8 years. I worked in engineering. I myself did chemical engineering from IIT Kanpur, and I got into renewable energy in the early 1970s, and I've never had any regrets so far. And it is something that I feel passionate about. So my advice to you would be to place a large amount of importance on what is it that you're interested in doing, what is your self-interest, what do you like to do, what is your motivation. And I'll give you a small indicator. Now, whatever you choose your career, we have 24 hours in a day, out of which we are sleeping for about 8 hours. So we have 16 waking hours in a day. And out of 8 hours in a day, out of 16 hours in a day, a minimum of 8 hours you're going to spend on your job. Morning 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, maybe more than that. So you could say, except the weekend, you could say roughly half your waking life, more than half your waking life is going to be spent working on the career you choose. So I think it's very important to choose something that you would find interesting, that you enjoy doing, and then half your life would be fun. It's something you like to do. You might spend much more than 8 hours a day in working, as long as you are motivated, something you're passionate about. And here, I want to point out to you a difference between what we call vocation, V-O-C-A-T-I-O-N, and a career. A career is a number of jobs, work you do over your lifetime. You're in the beginning of your career. I am almost at the end of my career. So I've gone through a lot of jobs. But the word vocation is very important. Most people don't even tell you about it. The word vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, which means to call. And there's a Latin noun which is vocationem, which means the calling. So there is a vocation is something very profound, which is very unique for every individual. Is there something that you're called upon? Do you feel a call of a certain branch of engineering? And then you should listen to this call. This is what will motivate you the rest of your life. So I would strongly suggest that you look into yourself and find out what is it that motivates you. Do you like mechanical engineering or chemical engineering or electrical engineering? And give that a great deal of importance, something even more than what your parents or your relatives or other people might tell you. But finally, it's your choice. Okay, in our School of Engineering, we offer B.Tech programs, we offer M.Tech programs, and we also offer PhD programs over a range of specializations, some of which I told you about. We have the main branches: petroleum, chemical, we have electrical engineering, aerospace, and then we have the specializations. We have energy systems, and we have renewable energy engineering. We have automotive design, we have instrumentation and process control in the electronics and communication. We have a course on disaster management. We have mechatronics, which is a very up and coming, and robotics, nanotechnology, fire safety engineering, and several others. We offer 51 programs in 15 departments. We have over 100 laboratories, 7 outdoor labs. We have a vast library, including electronic collection, and then we organize several research, work, and industrial visits. We also have foreign collaborations. We have foreign students doing internships here in our university, and you could also get an opportunity to do an internship in a foreign university. We have collaboration with universities in France, with Canada, Russia, and so on. Now we get down a little bit more specific into the departments. So the first one is the Petroleum and Earth Sciences Engineering, which is related to chemical engineering. The petroleum engineering is basically concerned with the production of hydrocarbons, that is crude oil and natural gas, that we tap from underneath the earth. Indian oil imports are increasing. Nearly 80% of our oil is imported, and the Indian oil consumption is expected to touch more than $80 billion in 2016-17. The natural gas production will touch about 90 billion cubic meters by 2040. Now we have several renewable substitutes that we are looking at for all our energy consumption, and especially for the fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are used for electricity generation. We use them in the transport sector, and these are the two main consumptions, but we also use it in industry. We use oil for heating. So in the transport sector, the government of India has got a national biofuels policy. So we are also looking at biofuels to substitute the fossil fuels in the transport sector. The two main biofuels we look at is ethanol and biodiesel, that is produced from plant oils. The petroleum sector is increasing to keep up with our energy consumption. For example, Bharat Petroleums, in just one of their refineries at Numaligarh, they are planning a 13,000 crore rupee expansion. It is projected that the demand for energy will double by the year 2040, and even right now, the renewable contribution is around, it's going to touch around 15%. So a large proportion of the demand for energy is still going to come from the petroleum and earth sciences. There is a lot of offshore oil drilling is coming up, and recently the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs awarded contracts for over 23 onshore and 8 offshore areas. Next we come to the electrical engineering, the electronics and communication. India is currently the second largest telecommunication market in the world, and we have the third largest number of internet users. Electrical engineering generally deals with electricity and electronics. The market size for electrical and electronics capital goods and the engineering turnover is over 100 billion US dollars. Engineering exports from India grew over 11% in the financial year 2016, and it touches over $65 billion. India is emerging as a leading player in the virtual world. We have over 700 million internet users, and this creates a great demand for electronic products, but also on the in the computers and internet area. We have over 4.7 billion global, out of 4.7 billion global users, we have about 700 million users. The spending on the engineering sector, this is a growing market, and this is touching over $1 trillion by 2020. And the Indian capital goods sector in electronics is expected to triple in size to 7.5 trillion rupees. That's over 100 billion US dollars. And this will add 21 million jobs by the year 2025. So the jobs in the electronics and electrical engineering communication sectors is going to add another 20 million jobs by 2025 over the next 8 years. Next, we look at the mechanical and allied engineering, the automotive sector, and mechatronics. So this includes mechanical engineers are required in the automobile, iron and steel, and energy sectors. India is the second largest producer of crude steel in 2017. Our steel capacity is building up, over $200 billion over the next decade. The Indian renewable energy sector is also growing tremendously. We'll come to this a little bit later. And the government has a very aggressive program for renewable energy, and this is also expected to create a large number of jobs. And automation is literally sweeping all across the world. Almost everything is having an increasing level of automation. And the department that deals with this is the mechatronics. This is also a very exciting area to get into. On the top right, you can see electric hybrid cars. I'll talk a little bit more about this when we look at the renewable sector. In the bottom left, you can look at how the number of automobiles in India, the number of cars is increasing. Now, the government of India has announced a very landmark policy announcement, and just about 3-4 months ago, the government of India has announced that by the year 2030, all the vehicles in India, the cars will become e-vehicles. So we are going to phase out all the petrol and diesel cars, and they will all become e-vehicles, which includes 3 segments. Is the electric vehicles, is the fuel cell vehicles, and it is the hybrid vehicles. We'll touch a little bit more on this a little bit later. Next, we come to the aerospace engineering and avionics. The aerospace is also a very high growth sector, especially in India, roughly $300 billion industry. And as we can see, the number of airlines has increased, the usage of airlines has increased tremendously. The Dehradun airport nearby the UPES, I remember in 20 years ago, it was a sleepy little airport. They probably had about 3 flights a day. And you go there now and it's just literally so busy, planes landing and taking off all the time. And India is set to become the 3rd largest aviation market by 2020. There's a joint venture between Boeing and Tata Advanced Systems to co-produce the Apache helicopters. The aerospace engineering is also moving into the defense aerospace department. And with the government of India, especially Shri Modi, our Prime Minister, emphasizing the Make in India, there's a lot of defense aerospace collaborations happening in India. And the Boeing Tata is one of them. Rolls-Royce is also getting into the game. All the major aerospace companies in the world, we have Lockheed Martin, we have the French companies. They are all having tie-ups with all the major Indian companies. So this is also a high growth sector for jobs in the aerospace sector. So what are the main trends? We have low-cost carriers, and in the aerospace, we have the market for drones is increasing. The drones are having multiple applications, and in the civil, for example, Amazon is looking at delivering all their packages by drones. They already have trial runs in the US. So you will probably have Amazon delivering anything you order by drone right to your house. So then we have the commercial electronics technology. We have aircraft monitoring health systems. And as you know, India is one of the 3 or 4 leading satellite technology nations. We are, ISRO is launching satellites commercially. And we are probably one of the 3. We have the Ariane in the US, in Europe, and so we have even leading companies in Europe and US launching their satellites using ISRO, the Indian technology. And then in the electronic sector, the connectivity has become a very major thing, fiber optics. and all the smart technologies, and we'll touch a little bit more on the smart grids. Next, we come to the civil engineering. Civil engineering employs more than 35 million people. This is the second largest sector after the agricultural sector. You must have heard that the government has launched the Smart Cities mission, and this includes a component in the civil engineering, but it also includes components in the electronics, communication, and so on. So we have more than 100 smart cities already declared, and this is going to create an investment of over 480 billion rupees. The other major announcement of the Government of India is the Housing for All project by 2022, and this is going to create a huge demand for civil engineers in the housing sector. We have the Amrut, the Atal Mission for Urban Rejuvenation and Transformation, to build 500 cities by 2022. This is another huge investment and creator of jobs. And then we have the Indian Ministry of Roads and Transport. They have outlined over 120 billion dollars worth of road widening projects. In addition, we have the quadrilateral highway projects connecting the north, south, east, and west. So huge investments in the roads and transport, and as always, the investment creates jobs. And the other major investment in the civil engineering sector is in our ports expansion, and there are over $60 billion to be invested in expanding the ports in infrastructure in India, and also building new ports. One of the other unique departments in UPES is the Fire Safety Engineering Department. And this is a very popular department in UPES, in the engineering school, and also it's becoming more and more important. Fire safety engineering is an overarching department that produces engineers who can go into almost any industry you can think of. The fire and safety standards are becoming more stringent, and they are being enforced more strictly. So we need fire safety engineers in almost all the industries. So this is because we are beginning to realize that fire is a very serious hazard, and over 25,000 people die every year. So in order to make a safer workplace, a safer living space, safer cities, the government wants to protect the economies and the environment by focusing on fire safety. So this is a fundamental aspect of society, and it's a very rapidly evolving field. So fire safety protection systems market in India is expected to grow to over 50 billion. Okay, what are the other jobs that we are looking at that is overarching in all the engineering sectors? So the Government of India has a national manufacturing policy, which they announced in 2012, and over the next 10 years to 2022, the intention is to create 100 million jobs. There's an increase of the manufacturing sector in India's GDP to 25% within a period of 10 years. The government is focusing on the Engineering Export Promotion Council. This has been elevated to an apex body in charge of promotion of engineering goods, products, and services. And recently we have the Make in India campaign. This is a flagship campaign of the Modi government. And there's the Vibrant Gujarat campaign. Some of the other states like Andhra Pradesh and so on are also having a focused approach to developing the electronics and other industries and to creating jobs, and also to boost the manufacturing sector. Okay, we look at the growth in key industries. And we have four major growth industries, and this is the growth for the last 1 year from October 2016 to October 17. The automobile sector has grown 23%. This is one of the largest growths in any of the sectors in engineering. The construction sector has grown almost the same, 22%. The oil and gas sector has grown by 11%, and the heavy machinery sector also by 11%. And all these growths are creating an equivalent number of jobs. Okay, top technology jobs, demands in the major top technology sectors. With increasing automation, we are having automation as a major increase in across the sectors, and this is in mechatronics. But in new areas, we are going to see more jobs in hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles, and this, as I said, is going to be due to the government declaring a policy of all vehicles becoming e-vehicles by the year 2030. Then we're going to have jobs in smart grids. This is in the power sector, but it's also an important component of the smart cities. And then we are having a high growth trend in the renewable energy sectors, solar photovoltaics, we have wind energy, and then we have the biofuels. And we also have a high growth in electronic design automation, telecommunications, and machine learning, which is a part of mechatronics. So this is a fuel cell vehicle. There's going to be jobs in fuel cell vehicles. This involves electrical engineering, it involves electronics, it involves control systems, and then it also involves automobile engineering for the rest of the car. And fuel cells can be powered. One of the fuels is a hydrogen storage tank. This is a Honda fuel car, and this is a hydrogen filling station for fuel cells. One of the main, the jobs in the renewable energy sector is also growing by leaps and bounds, and this is arising out of the MNREs, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, and they have declared a target of 175 gigawatts from renewable energy by the year 2022. So over the next 5 years, this is a huge lump, a huge increase, and India is one of the most exciting countries in the world right now for renewable energy. And out of 175 gigawatts, recently I was at the Renewable Energy Expo in Greater Noida near Delhi in September. I don't know how many of you were there, but this was a very exciting place, and there were nearly 200 companies there, a lot of them solar. So out of the 175 gigawatts, 100 gigawatts is going to come from solar photovoltaics, mainly a little bit from solar thermal. You're going to have 60 gigawatts from wind. So these are the two main high growth sectors. 100 gigawatts from solar photovoltaics, 60 gigawatts from wind, and then there is 10 gigawatts from bioenergy, including biofuels, 5 gigawatts from hydropower. And the number of jobs has been estimated by CEW and NDRC. In the solar sector, it is estimated this will create 1.1 million jobs, and about 200,000 jobs in the wind sector, which is basically large wind farms. Now, solar photovoltaics, this is a solar photovoltaic power plant at UPES. I'm just waiting for the slides to change on your screen. Okay, so this is a 100 kilowatt solar photovoltaic power plant at UPES, And if you join UPES to study engineering, this is the kind of hands-on work you'll get. You'll get a chance to study the solar photovoltaic power plant. You'll get an opportunity to participate in hands-on installation of solar photovoltaics, and we have laboratories for solar PV. So we train our engineers in many of the branches, electrical, electronics, mechanical, and so on. We give them an exposure to some of the main areas that is now opening up in terms of jobs. So you'll be able to get some practical experience. We also have solar thermal systems. This is a picture of solar water heating systems on the roof of our boys hostel. This is another area where you'll be doing experiments in the lab. We are also doing research on concentrated solar power. This is being used for power generation. It is used also for solar cooking systems. This is from one of our laboratories. This is called the Schaeffler dish. It's a fixed focus concentrated solar system, a paraboloid. And this we are also doing research on pyrolysis to produce biofuels from biomass. These are the kind of things BTech students do one, or sometimes they do 2 or 3 projects during the BTech. These are all the areas where our faculty will guide you. Whatever area of interest you choose, you'll be able to do a project, and a large number of these projects are hands-on. You build something, you instrument it, you collect some data. We also have what we call a RISE program, in which we will give you up to 20,000 rupees to build your model in the project. So we encourage hands-on projects, and this is a very exciting part of the BTech curriculum. Another area where the electrical and electronics department is getting into is the smart grids. And this is an example of a smart grid automation system, a distribution system using what we call volt-var control. This is smart meters that are installed in our substation to monitor the grid parameters. ये बदलने में थोड़ा टाइम लगता है नहीं? Okay, this shows you the smart meter, and I showed you this one. Okay, in the renewable energy sector, where are the jobs? So the jobs are with the manufacturers of the equipment, and almost everything now we have manufacturing going on in India. Some of them are with collaboration with foreign agencies. We do, the Make in India is still taking off, so we do import solar panels largely from China, for example, but we are building up the manufacturing industry in all these areas, including solar photovoltaics. So that is creating more and more jobs. Another area, main area of the renewable energy sector is project developers who are actually installing renewable. For example, you might have heard of the Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, in which solar parks are being developed all over the country, especially in the solar energy rich states, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, and Gujarat. And other states are catching up, and in the solar parks, the solar power plants are being installed, and each power plant is 500 megawatts or more. And these were unthinkable even 10 years ago. 500 megawatts was a huge big power plant. So now this has become very common, and for the installation of these power plants, project developers are creating jobs. So this is another area where you'll get trained. You could get jobs in the government sector, in the the Central Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Each state has a nodal energy agency. You could get jobs in the non-profit sector, in non-government organizations, and some of the major NGOs in India, the TERI, the Energy and Resources Institute, Center for Science and Environment, ID Power, and so on. You could get jobs not only in other countries, but in India, all the major international development agencies have their offices. For example, the German agency GIZ, the Swiss agency SDC, and then you have the Swedish agency, the Canadian agency, and so on. So most of them are based in New Delhi. Or if you have entrepreneurial talents, you could start your own company. Some of our graduates and postgraduates from UPS have started their own companies in the solar and other sectors. Okay, in the solar and wind farms, these are the two main renewable sectors, 100 gigawatts coming up in solar, 60 gigawatts in wind. In these, you have jobs in the manufacturing sector, the business development. This is done by the what we call the system integrators. So this is another segment that has come into the picture. These are the people who are not manufacturing anything, they're sourcing the equipment. For example, a solar power plant, the system integrator will source the solar photovoltaic modules from one manufacturer, the inverter from somebody else, the balance of systems, the cables and charge controllers, so on, from somebody else. But nowadays, largely the charge controllers are integrated into the inverters. If it's an off-grid system, he'll source the batteries, and he integrates everything, and he needs people to develop the business for him. And then we have in this the development companies or the system integrators, they have jobs for design and in the pre-construction stage, and then you have the construction and commissioning stage, and once the power plants are commissioned, you have people you need for the operation and maintenance. So the major sectors where you can get jobs in the renewable energy. This gives you some idea of the biggest thrust of the Modi government in the renewable energy policy. They were 175 megawatts, 100 gigawatts, 100 gigawatts for the solar sector. And this gives you some idea of the jobs in the solar sector. So there are three main segments in the solar sector. You have the rooftops. This is a huge program. Almost all the cities now, all government buildings are having or planning to have solar photovoltaics on the roof. You can put them up on the roof of your houses, and industries are putting them on the roof of the industrial buildings. So huge segment of the solar photovoltaics. Then you have large-scale ground-mounted solar installations, and then you have the solar parks under the National Solar Mission, the Jawaharlal Nehru Solar Mission. So this gives you a breakup of the major segments in the solar sector. And here you can see that out of more than 1.1 million jobs, more than half the jobs, over 600,000 jobs, are in the construction and commissioning. But you do have skilled jobs in the construction and commissioning, about 200,000. And then you have about 200,000 in the operation and maintenance, and then a little bit, around 30,000 in the others. So what are the main career opportunities and trends in the engineering school in 2017? So you can look at the main segments. You have the IT and telecom, of course, but you do have the skill sets required in robotics, automation, mechatronics, manufacturing and engineering, and then you have the embedded systems. Then of course you have the durables, and then infrastructure projects, automobiles, logistic. On the right side you can see a graph over 1 year. What is the average market demand? And then you can see the average market. So this is generally growing, and this is indication of how the jobs are growing. I'll tell you a little bit about UPS. We place a great deal of importance on the placement. We try to make sure that all our graduates and postgraduates get jobs before they finish in the UPS. And for this reason, we try to align all our courses with the industry requirements. So we are trying to meet the industry requirements so that it'll be much easier when you go for a recruitment interview or placement interview. You'll have the skill set that is required by the industry. So we have managed to place over 7,500 placements in 750 companies, mostly national, but also some of international stature. And you can look on the right side, the histogram shows you the placement increase, annual placement increase from 2011 to 2017. And you can see that as our strength is increasing, our placement has also been increasing. This is just to show you some of the major companies that come to UPS where we have got placement for our graduates. It includes all the major companies that are in India, Tech Mahindra, Sony, and so on. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and now we can take any questions you might have. I see that we already have some questions, so I'll try to answer these first. And with me here is Dr. Ajay from the mechanical engineering, also to help us to answer all your questions. Okay, we have the first one says, good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon. Request you to post email ID for future reference. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, please tell me about UPS entrance exam. So, Dr. Ajay, could you just say a little bit about the UPS entrance exam?
The entrance examinations would be held in the month of May. The online tests are being conducted, and the rolling off of the forms, enrollment forms will be there, and then you'll have proper knowledge about that thing. So that will be held somewhere in the month of May, and then followed by a centralized counseling where you can come and see your chances for a particular program. We can take the next one. I think that answers your question.
Tell me about petroleum.
Petroleum.
You want to take that?
Yeah, you can take that. So petroleum is definitely one of the biggest paymaster. As we know, it is one of the most preferred areas as far as the students are concerned. They look for this thing because it's an area where you get huge salaries and all those things. But it is also important from the economy point of view. So we know that 80% of our oils are coming from imports, and then there is a huge potential in the country. You can work on the field of say upstream area, downstream refining, etc. So it's a great field to work, and it has a great potential. Although there is a prediction that a lot of things are going to go on E, so there was some suggestions on that front by Professor Raghavan, where he was suggesting that a lot of things are now by 2030 will be on E or hybrid vehicles, but then we see that a lot of commercial vehicles are still being run, and the power requirement which is there for these kind of vehicles are not easily met by E vehicles. So the whole commercial vehicle sector, and high power, high torque requirement vehicles definitely would be running on the petroleum products only, and also there are a lot of emerging fields which will require these things. So it's a great field to work, and then it provides great platform to the students, and they have built a lot of great careers out of this. So I hope that answers your questions. Any further query on that can be taken by the departments. You can always refer to the enrollment section, and then look at the people from the department, and they would be very happy to answer your question.
Okay, I can take the next one. This is about what all fields are there in chemical engineering. Okay, about the petroleum. Now we have also, in petroleum they split it into two parts. It's the upstream and then the downstream. So the upstream starts from the drilling and everything that comes up to the refinery, and then you have the downstream. So we are looking at both the crude oil and the gas. Now, chemical engineering is basically deals with the chemical industry, but because petrochemicals and refining is also essentially a chemical industry, so this is a specialization in the chemical engineering department. But if you study chemical engineering, you would be able to get a job in any of the chemical industries, not just in refining and petrochemicals. And as I mentioned, I actually did chemical engineering in IIT Kanpur, and then I started working on renewable energy. So renewable energy is a very multidisciplinary thing. So for example, in chemical engineering, you know, like if you take a biodiesel plant, for example, these are all basically chemical plants. So you'd be able to work in any of the chemical industry. And then the next one is, what's the security of the UPS entrance exam? So you want to take that one?
Sorry, I could not get the question properly. What is the security of UPS entrance? It's a very foolproof examination method. We conduct a very transparent examination system, and the whole system is very, very transparent. If I could get the question correct, that would be the answer. And if you're asking what is the possibility of getting a seat through the examination, you have a fair chance if you do well. That is what I would say here.
Yeah, no more. Yeah, you know, see, in life there's no 100% guarantee of anything, you know. So when you apply, you know, for an entrance exam, you do your best, and in the enrollment, I mean, just like all other institutions, you know, engineering institutions, we rank the students according to how well they did. So, you know, so depending on your ranking, we do the counseling, and then it will depend what branch you can get, depending on what is available. So basically, the security lies in how well you do in the exam. So any other questions? But I'll tell you one thing from my petroleum engineering. Okay, now about higher studies. But I'll just tell you, I'll share with you a little bit of philosophy of life, you know, concerning your future also. Okay, now when you want something in your life, let's say you want a seat in UPS, you're writing the exam, or you want anything in your life. Now, how do you make it happen? How do you make it into a reality? Okay, one is hard work, but it also starts with it's like a seed. You start with an idea. Okay, I want to join UPS. It's an idea. It's like sowing a seed. Now you got to nurture the seed. You got to give it fertilizer. You got to give it water. And all our ideas in life, what we want to do in our life is like that. And then it's the strength of how much you want. If you want a certain branch of engineering, if you want it very strongly, you'll get it. Okay, so it's totally up to you. You know, the security of what you get, where you get. And the next question is, what is the scope of petroleum engineering in higher studies? Okay, I'll tell you about higher studies in all the branches of engineering. It's not just in petroleum engineering. Okay, now, thank you for that question. It's a good question because I forgot to cover it in my talk. Now, when you leave your BTech, when you finish your BTech, we are addressing this mainly to BTech, but it's also applicable to MTech. When you finish your BTech, then basically you have two main options. You can either go try to get a job, or you can opt for further studies. So you have two main options. And if you want to get a job, I told you about what are the possibilities, non-government, government, private sector, and so on, right? So if you want to get into academics, then all the branches, you have an option after BTech to go for the MTech, Master of Technology. So Bachelor of Technology, BTech, and usually This is the route for the higher studies. Next level above the bachelor's degree, BTech, you have the master's degree, MTech. And it depends if you have, but what is happening is at every level, the specializations are narrowing. So when you went to school, 10th class, you had an option to do either science or arts. By the time you took 11th and 12th, you decided to go for science. By the time you took BTech, you decided to go for some branch of engineering. When you go to MTech, you will specialize further. So by the time you finish BTech, we give you a very wide exposure. So supposing the question is from petroleum, just as an example, you will have a wide exposure to everything that petroleum engineering is dealing with, so that you're in a position to choose where you want to specialize in your MTech. And then after MTech, if you're interested in research, in MTech we have coursework, we also have research, and if you find you're very much interested in research, you want to do further studies, you can enroll for a PhD. Yeah, so we have all those things in UPS. We have MTech, we have PhD. PhD is the research component is a very large component. If your PhD, normally a PhD would take 4 or 5 years. You could do it in 3 years if you're really fast. And you might have coursework in your first year, sometimes in the first semester, sometimes 2 or 3 courses in the second semester. But basically, it is research. So when you do PhD, you must have a very strong orientation towards research, and you must have the topic of your research, of your thesis, will be very specialized. Okay, and then you have possibility of getting jobs in academics. And in UPS, some of our graduates, masters and PhD graduates, you can join the teaching sector, you can become an assistant professor in a university, and then you can continue in teaching if that's what you like. But if you do research after higher studies, you can also get into the research in the private sector. So you have research engineers who work in the private sector. Okay. Is there any, you want to take this one? Is there any, there's another question, is there any scholarship program? So Dr. Ajay will answer this one.
Right now, to answer that question about scholarship, I would say there are a lot of scholarships, and you should keep in touch with the enrollment department for that. And for every program, there are scholarships. You can avail that, but the only requirement, as quite natural, would be a meritorious situation in that. Huh? So definitely, on the basis of rank, we have scholarships. That answers your questions, I think.
Okay, and another thing is there is some quota for the state, right?
That is state system. That's for admission. That's what.
Okay, so there is, we have much more details on our website. Okay, someone wanted to know the email. So if you go to the UPS website,
I think that they can contact with me.
yeah, or you can contact our enrollment, and all the details are in the website. We have the email ID, we have the phone numbers. So if you get into contact with our enrollment department, and they can guide you further. Any other questions?
So you can just ask if they have questions.
Okay, so we will wait a few minutes more if any of you have any further questions. So I wish to thank all of you for taking the time out to attend this webinar, and I wish you the very best in your future career. I hope you firstly find what you're really interested in doing, and then I hope you get a good branch of engineering that fits in with your interest and motivation. And I hope you get a good university, whether it's UPS or you go anywhere else. We wish you all the best. And I think we will close if you have no further questions. Okay, thank you very much. And we hope to see you here soon. Okay, bye. We're still here. We can take one or two more questions if you have any, as long as we are on the website, on the webinar, sorry.